Call this meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education to order. Members of the board, Mrs. Flynn has had an emergency come up and is not going to be able to be in attendance with us this evening, so we wish her well. And we would like to have an approval of the agenda, please.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell.
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting of February 19, 2018, Wilson County Board of Education.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that we approve the agenda as presented for February 19th, 2018. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Members of the board and members of the audience, Mrs. Boyette will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Please stand as we do this.
So on President's Day, will you join me?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Members of the board, we have minutes of January 22nd, 2018 for approval. What is your pleasure?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Barnes?
I move that we approve the regular board meeting minutes of January 22nd, 2018. Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that we approve the minutes of January 22nd, 2018 Board of Ed meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Good news presentation. Mrs. Boyette, if you would assist the superintendent, we'll have that information. I see him, okay. Our first item, as they're moving forward, is a presentation from Sheriff Calvin Woodard for the Wilson County Sheriff's Office auction proceeds. Sheriff Woodard, welcome.
First of all, I would like to definitely give honor to God, Lord Jesus Christ, my Savior, and definitely this is to me a blessed day. Ladies and gentlemen of the, and Lady Chairman, of course, of the Board of Education, the Sheriff's Office had an auction back in November. And I know we've been trying to get some dates set so we can finally meet with one another, but we finally was able to schedule this date. And pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 15, Article 2 of that Section 15, all proceeds from the auction goes towards the school board, the treasurer of the school board, which the first time we did it 4 years ago, it was $1,000, and this time, thank God, it's $4,198.14. And so I would just like to present this check to the school board. I wish it had some extra zeros in it to help things out, but I think this would definitely be sufficient.
All right. We'll let the superintendent step forward and receive that on our behalf.
You too. Always good to see you.
Isn't that a good looking check? Isn't that a good looking
Soft and carry a
check?
big check.
All right.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure. Appreciate
Yes,
your
sir.
support as always.
You too, sir. Thank you, Doctor.
We'll get that to somebody responsible real quick.
Oh, yes, sir.
Thank you, Sheriff
Thank
Wood, for
you.
all that you do and for the support of the school system with your deputies and all other activities. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll be happy to hold this. I'll give it to the finance officer. So I'll turn it over now to Dr. Mills and Ms. Boyette.
Board members, audience members, this time I'd like to recognize Larry Etheridge and Paul Ferris if they're with us tonight. I think I saw on the back.
They are.
I'll tell you a little bit about these folks as they come down. Mr. Etheridge is the general manager of the ABC board. Mr. Ferris is the ABC board chairman and the president of the States Association of ABC boards. Come on down. Stand here, Ms. Boyd. Let me tell you a little bit about why they're here tonight. The Wilson County Alcoholic Beverage Control Board donated $7,168 to 13 of our schools to support alcohol and substance abuse prevention programs. The ABC Board has provided funding to our schools for a number of years, and we appreciate their willingness to partner with us. The schools use the funds for various programs or activities to teach students the dangers of underage drinking and other harmful substances. We want to thank Mr. Etheridge and Mr. Ferris for their support, because it's important for us to do all that we can to prevent our students from getting addictive behaviors that could destroy their lives. We also want to thank Board Member Henry Mercer for being such a great liaison between the ABC Board and ours to ensure that our students are empowered to make the right decisions. It's always glad to have you here, and thank you for all the support for all of our schools and school system. Thank you. Yep, got them right here. Audience members and board members, I'd like to, for Character Education Night, this next group I'm going to call up, but these are referred to as the Sensational Six at Darden Middle School. So if they would come on up, Miss Chapman, Miss Glover, Miss Gupton, Miss Hennett, Miss Roberts, and Miss Turner.
Sensational.
Yeah.
Mr. Singh, the principal, is here tonight as well. Mr. Lila Jackson is here as well, school improvement grant coach. Let me tell you a little bit about this group right here. Many people think that teaching is a job done in isolation, but those of us in this room know different. Teachers need other teachers, and our students reap the benefits when teachers come together to prepare lessons, discuss data, and form strategies. The sixth grade team at Darden has taken the idea of collaboration to a whole new level this year. They call themselves the Sensational Six, and they're constantly encouraging each other. They send each other funny memes every day and even coordinate their outfits on Fridays. Which, too bad today's not a Friday. But I know there was some coordination here, as I was quickly corrected and said it was just a joke. One of our favorites was Perfectly Plaid Friday, where they all wore plaid shirts. In a short amount of time, they have all become more than colleagues. They're truly friends. Tonight, we're thrilled to award each of them with a Character Education Award for the good judgment they had to embrace each other and become a team. And we are truly grateful for that and thankful that you're here in our school system. So, the Sensational Six.
Okay.
Now, Friday, we expect a shot of the latest coordination so we can post it online, okay? Blue? Okay.
They already
Duke
know.
or Carolina?
We expect something special, okay?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Trojan blue.
All right, Mr. Swartz, I hear you trying to get your color in there, but no, they got their own color. Trojan blue. All right, thank you. It's always good to have the good news, so we thank each and every one of you. Under the chairman's report, I thank Mr. Mercer for attending the Smart Cookies at Lee Woodard on January the 9th. On February the 7th, Mrs. Boyette attended at Lucama. Thank you very much. We have an upcoming on February 21st at Stantonsburg Elementary, and Mrs. Powell is going to be attending that one. And we have March 7th at 2 o'clock at Vic Elementary School. So
I would like to do that one.
Mrs. Barnes.
What's the date again, Dr. Page?
March the 7th
7th.
at 2 p.m. Thank you so very much. You've had a chance to look at the calendar that Mrs. Horrison has laid at your board seat, and there are a lot of interesting activities that are there. Some are learning activities for us, but other are volunteer activities. We do know that Read Across America Week is the 5th through the 9th of March, and we all know that we get those invitations to be the guest readers. So If you've not already been approached to be a guest reader, please volunteer your time, decide where you would like to go, and there are many classrooms that we can opt into, and it's always a fun time. I had the opportunity on Saturday to go to the Darden Gym, where being hosted were all-star games. Students from not only Wilson County but across the area had been invited by the Wilson AAU group to be participants, and they highlighted the students, girls as well as boys, in basketball, and it was a really wonderful activity. And so I give a shout out to that AAU program because it enhances the opportunities for our athletes to showcase their talents more. And as I say, there were students from Greene County, from I think it was Greene County, Edgecombe County, I know, Nash, Rocky Mount, as well as Wilson. So it was a wonderful activity, and my hat goes off to them for that activity. And the last thing that I have on my agenda as the chairman is to announce that we are now live. This board meeting is live. It's also being live streamed. We can be found on both Spectrum and Greenlight on channel 22. So I give a shout out to Mr. Robinson and his students, because as we started this process of televising our meetings, the meetings were recorded and then they were edited or done whatever needed to be done by the students, and they were put on a loop. And I'm sure that it will continue to be on a loop, but we have to give a round of applause to our students who very capably run the operation of televising our board meeting and activities. So please join me in giving them a round of applause. Job well done. Thank you very much. Now I'll turn it over to the superintendent for his remarks.
Board members, audience members, on January 27th, the Career and College Showcase was held, and this was a collaborative event between our school district and Wilson Community College. Students and families were able to explore technical certificates, diplomas, and degree opportunities, had a chance to attend, and attendance was up from last year, so it was a great event. Our second graders started week-long swimming lessons. We're grateful to the Wilson YMCA and the Wilson Rec for partnering with us to provide this life skill. It's so very important. During the lessons, the students wear the SEAL swim safe monitors that alert lifeguards if they're underwater too long, and the YMCA received these monitors through a grant. We just had our 100th day of school on February 12th. It's kind of scary. Our K-2 teachers always do a great job with this for celebrations and plan activities related to the number 100, even asking students to dress like they're 100 years old, and other activities that you may see. You might see some things on social media that might not act accordingly, so keep an eye on those. School Bus Driver Appreciation Week and National School Counseling Week were held recently, and it's so very important to thank those employees for everything they do every day for our students in our system. So we've got a couple upcoming events that I want you to be aware of. Our applications are now available for the 2018-19 pre-K program. Applications are available at any of our elementary schools or at the central office, and you can also print the necessary documents from our website. The deadline to turn in the application at central office is April 30th. Registration and screening will be held on May 22nd at Vick Elementary School. Plans are in the works for our 2018 teacher job fair. That'll be Saturday, March 17th from 9 to noon at Darden Middle School. Interviews and contingency contracts will be offered on site. If you see any of our Teachers of the Year this coming week, just so you'll know, they're getting ready to attend a week-long session at NCAT, Center for Advancement of Teaching, March 5th through the 9th. And we're really pleased to be able to offer this opportunity for PD for them, professional development, and we're very grateful to the Wilson Education Partnership for covering the majority of the cost. This is something the group went last year, and it was very important for them, and we received wonderful feedback from it. So they're headed down there very soon. We nominated several of our principals to be part of the 2018-19 Distinguished Leadership in Practice cohort, and I'm pleased to tell you we had 3 selected this year. I think a couple of them are in the audience tonight. Claudia Spencer from Elm City Elementary, Mr. Jagtar Singh from Darden Middle, and Marcus Spell from Springfield Middle. So it's a great program. It's one we should be proud that they're attending and bringing that information back and that leadership back for our schools. And we're proud of them for being selected. Madam Chair and board members, I do have one other item that I would like to share, and it is one with a great deal of sadness that I did want to mention that, as many of you are aware, we had a teacher pass away, Scott Jones, an English teacher at Bettyfield High School. Mr. Jones passed from health complications on Saturday. He was a teacher at Bettyfield for 13 years. So a memorial program will be held tomorrow at 3:30 in the auditorium at Bettyfield High School. Graveside service will be Wednesday, February 21st at 2 p.m. at St. Mary Episcopal Church in Speed, North Carolina. And the family will see friends at Carlisle Funeral Home in Tarboro on Tuesday from 6 to 8. I would ask that you keep their family in your thoughts and prayers, and also the staff and students at Bettyfield. He was very important to their staff and to our family. This is a very difficult time, and these things are just very trying for our students and our staff. And I was out there today, several of you were as well. And folks at Bettyfield are taking care of one another and coming together at this time of sadness. And if it would, I would like to ask if we could have a moment of silence for passing our teacher, Mr. Jones. Thank you.
Does that conclude you?
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Now is the time on our agenda that allows the public to give us input. Each person is granted 3 minutes for his or her presentation. This portion of the meeting is for the board to hear matters of interest from the public. However, issues and concerns that address specific personnel or students should not be discussed during the public portion of the meeting, but may be presented in writing to the superintendent or the Board of Education. We have 11 people who have signed up to address the board. 9 of the 11 are addressing Spanish immersion, and the other 2 are addressing Frederick Douglass High School request, the Alumni Association's request. So the first person is Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dr. Mills, members of the board, good evening.
Good evening.
I've come again to speak about the renaming of the elementary school, and I thought it would be interesting and important enough because I know you have to vote tonight and the vote has to be unanimous. And if there are those among you who still haven't made up your mind, I want to talk a little bit about and give you a historical perspective of things that happened. Let's go back to the decade of the 60s, because this is when these things happened. 1963, the President of the United States was assassinated. In 1968, our leader, Martin Luther King, was assassinated. Robert Kennedy assassinated the same year. And in the same decade, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation of schools was going to be illegal. My point is there was a lot of unrest during this decade. The National Guard was right here on the city streets of Wilson, right here, and things were happening. Yet in the same time period, we were told to integrate the schools. If you remember, during that time, there were 3 separate units in this county: Elm City School District, Wilson County School District, and Wilson City School District. You personally had nothing to do with that at that time. You were not on the Board of Education during that time. Elm City was a separate unit with its own bus system, its own food service system, everything separated. Well, when the decree came down to integrate the schools, the school board of Elm City decided we need to get on this. So they tried a preliminary injunction at first. They said, let's take at least 2 teachers from Frederick Douglass, put them at the white school and a handful of students to see if we can ease into this thing of integration. They chose 2 teachers, Ms. Pauline White and Ms. Gloria Burks went there to be a preliminary force. And a handful of students worked the first year. But for the next year of total integration, the school board decided that we needed to do some things to do this because integration was going to be inevitable. and we needed to get to work on that. So we started having joint faculty meetings. We did that several times. We had the student councils to meet, and they decided on school colors. They chose the mascot. I wrote a school song for the alma mater and a fight song for the teams to go on the field with. All this was in preparation of getting ready for integration. There were only two schools. One was called Frederick Douglass, one was called Elm City High School. So the preliminary work was very important, and that began to happen. But about that same time, people realized that we're going to have to do this, but there was a group that said, I don't want to send my child to a school that was named after a black person. That's the simple truth. How do I know? I was there. And it began to happen all throughout this state. Any school that bore the name of George Washington Carver, Booker T. Washington, Frederick Douglass, all these schools either they were closed or the name was changed or they were torn down. It happened all throughout the state on this. And so it happened in Elm City. That said, we'll go. Am I through already? That's 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I was on the roll. I'm sorry about it. Let me just close with this quickly because this is important. This is so significant that this was delayed for the month of February. This is Black History Month. And what a significant thing would happen here because we are celebrating the 200th birthday of Frederick Douglass this month. I think you need to make a good decision and vote yes.
Those 3 minutes go by very quickly, don't they, Mr. Myers? Yes. Alice Freeman.
We're back! Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Mills, I'm just here to say, members of the Frederick Douglass High School Alumni Association, hope that you will look with favor upon our request to rename Elm City Elementary Frederick Douglass Elm City. Frederick Douglass, I'm so excited. Frederick Douglass Elementary School. Thank you.
Thank you. John Connolly.
Good evening. My name is John Conley, and I'm a parent of a middle school and high school student in Wilson County. It has recently been brought to my attention that there are currently 2 classes being taught at Elm City Middle School that have more than 50 students in each class and are being taught in the auditorium. These are core classes in math and ELA, and they were previously combined out of 2 courses of 25 students each, roughly, approximate numbers. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but these courses were combined reportedly due to the inability to replace existing teacher positions, the vacant teacher positions, due to the current hiring freeze. The teaching middle school students at a ratio of 50 to 1 is not acceptable. The core classes, especially these courses, can affect their high school placement. So what I would ask is that the board take a hard look at these vacant positions for teacher replacements with regards to core classes and fill these positions immediately, exempt them from the hiring freeze. Our students deserve better than 50 to 1. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Satterfield.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We are back as well. We are all the way out to the street, I do believe. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My husband and I have a son, Daniel, in the 3-4 combo Spanish immersion class at Elm City, and a 5th grade daughter in a traditional class there as well. I would like to briefly address the parent meeting held last Thursday night and the survey given. After attending and speaking at almost a year's worth of board meetings, parents were thrilled when Ms. Flynn suggested a parent meeting. Unfortunately, the meeting was not designed for two-way communication or dialogue, and therefore a disappointment. I was also disheartened to find that Spanish immersion teachers were told not to come, and board members who, up until recently, were going to vote on it tonight, received an invitation 4 to 5 hours before the meeting, while parents were notified 2 weeks before. With that in mind, I also question the purpose of the survey and strongly disagree with the use of some of the questions. The ranked questions do not allow ties as a reliable way to understand where all of us parents stand on the issues at hand. The set of ranked questions in the survey force parents to rank importance of vastly different aspects of Spanish immersion: transportation, location, structure of the program, eligibility criteria were all lumped together. Rank surveys of this nature are meant to assess a preference when they have to choose between closely related items, not those diverse items. The wording of the survey was also extremely ambiguous, and it lacked reliable question-response options. For example, the options strongly agree and strongly disagree varied in order from question to question. First, it would be first on the drop-down menu. 2 questions later, it would be last on the drop-down menu. It's easy to click a first option, assuming that the order of the options remain the same throughout the survey. Questions also included, what would we do if the program were to relocate? Would you apply to reassign? Why is that even a question after a feasibility study last year found Elm City to be the best location? There was also no plan for parents not in attendance to receive this survey until parents in attendance mentioned that. Many questions were asked without the full information. And earlier in the meeting, we realized what the question truly was asking about, referring to all students in the district, how important it was for us to think that all students should be bilingual, bicultural. We assumed it was our students within this program. And lastly, how did the survey questions relate to the questions that we've been asking for a year? I was encouraged after attending the Instructional Services Committee prior to this meeting to hear the board's support. I only wish that meeting had occurred a year ago. Budgets are tight and budgets are fluid. Let us, the parents in this room, the many others that have been here for a year, and the rest of them that could not be here tonight, help you. Let us work together. That is all we are asking. Let us help you. We are active, we are supportive, and we want to make this work like so many other counties have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Satterfield. Natalie Hanchett.
Good evening. Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Okay. Language immersion programs are rapidly gaining popularity across the nation. Over 30 years of research of language immersion studies provide an indisputable proof of their effectiveness and benefit to the students, especially in districts serving minorities that exhibit the biggest academic achievement gap. Over 56 schools in 20 counties across North Carolina are using language immersion programs to close achievement gaps and to make their students competitive in the global market. Nash Rocky Mount County and Edgecombe County schools districts started their own language immersion programs in the fall of 2017, and they now have a waiting list to get admitted. Edgecombe County has a successful Spanish immersion charter school as well. Successful language immersion programs are supported, promoted, and funded. The Wilson County program started in Wilson County in 2013. Dr. Mills stated that his tenure, Dr. Mills started his tenure as superintendent in July 1st, 2016. For the past 18 months, the previous superintendent has been blamed for no district formal plan for Spanish immersion program since its inception in 2013, which was yet again mentioned during the February 15th presentation. July 1st will mark 2 years since the beginning of Dr. Mills' tenure, and yet there's still no formal plan. It is time, we feel, no disrespect, it's time to stop placing blame on the previous superintendent. The administration and the board have been in place all year long. You have families offering to help in any way possible to acquire necessary funds. Dr. Mills, we are asking you, please create a program and let us help if necessary. We want our schools to thrive and our children to be successful. In order for that to happen, we need to work together. If this program had been embraced by Wilson County Schools and promoted in 2017, as opposed to being set up for failure, we would likely not have enough available spots for interested families. As the program grows, its cost effectiveness becomes greater. And if Wilson County Schools is to keep the Spanish immersion program, it needs to be known to the public that it's being embraced and it's here to stay. It's not fair to students and to us families to have to worry about the rug being pulled out from under them every year. And if I may just mention, there was one comment earlier about middle school and the cost of Spanish immersion for middle school. When we originally had that meeting with VIF, we were under the impression that middle school would just be one class that was taught in Spanish. So I'm not sure where that concern comes from. I don't believe it would be a self-contained program in the middle school. So I'm curious about, I'm not sure, what was meant by that earlier, but I'd be interested in more information about that. And if I may quickly, one more request. I would love to get a budget overview report that was approved by the budget at the beginning of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelley Gibson.
Hello, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today, and I wanted to take a minute today too to thank each of you for your attention to this issue. I'm going to kind of piggyback on what they said a little bit from the meeting from February 15th. It's been mentioned that Wilson County Schools has 16 students enrolled in this Spanish immersion program. And Dr. Mills repeatedly pointed out that the financial needs of the core classes outweigh the needs of the Spanish immersion program in that meeting. But all of us parents feel that the Spanish immersion program is not just an enhancement class. These 116 students are taught the same core subjects as their peers in English language classrooms. They're just being taught in their target language, which in this case is Spanish. They will need to be educated by licensed teachers, even if the Spanish immersion program is discontinued. So budget programs and teacher shortages are not going to be resolved simply by eliminating those Spanish immersion teacher positions. Dr. Mills stated that 13 more positions were required from the state without additional funding, but 8.5 were sent back from the original allotment from the state. That would still total 13 only requiring local funding, as the other positions were laid off and the funds were sent back to the state. If Wilson County Schools chose to keep these positions, then the funds would have to be from a local fund and would be additional monies required and not mandated by Spanish immersion or the state. Rather, it would be a local board choice and one that could have been added to that list of priorities we were given in that survey. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to close on a personal note. I have twins in Spanish immersion. They're in first grade, and they absolutely love the program, not only because they're learning Spanish, but also because of their teachers, who are amazing. I'm sure y'all have heard that before. They adore their teachers and just the positive energy that these teachers bring to the room, to the classroom. And I was trying to keep it from them, but they heard what the meeting was about that we went to last Thursday. And as soon as they heard it, both of the twins, they got kind of upset and immediately said, well, can we start a lemonade stand? What can we do to help out? And then when we got home, my daughter went through her piggy bank and gave me all of her money and said, I want to spend my money on Spanish immersion. So I know it's the kids are just as excited and ready to jump in to do whatever it takes to save this program as all the parents standing in here to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, is this Harrison? Harrigan. I can't. Is that Harrison? Thank you.
Yes, it's me again, I know. Good evening. Thank you for having me. Sure. Once again. I respect that you all have an enormous job, and that the Spanish immersion program is but a small portion of all the children that you oversee. However, as I've heard, many of you agree it is a valuable program, but a program without a plan. Well, for a program without a plan, my daughter is getting one heck of an education, and I think there are other parents that would agree. I'm truly amazed each time I go into these classrooms, and I go every week, as I've been doing for 5 years, to volunteer. And I hope that all of you have had the opportunity to go into these classrooms and see what's going on, because it's more than surveys and test scores. That's not even the half of it. Anyway, you've talked about your concern for sustainability, and it is just very difficult to sustain a program that has been shuffled, moved, and not promoted or advertised for the past 2 years. In fact, not only has it not been advertised, instead rumors have been swirling that it is not supported and that it may not be continued. We cannot grow and sustain a program with that kind of a reputation. And I just got this paper home in my child's backpack with the kindergarten information, and there's not one word about Spanish immersion. We cannot sustain a program that is not promoted. We need a solid kindergarten class to grow this program. I don't understand how there are 60+ schools in this state that have this program, and they are able to fund it and sustain it. Can we not speak to these schools and speak to these superintendents and find out how are they funding this program, and we cannot, because I don't understand it. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you again probably.
Thank you. Susan Moss.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to thank y'all for your willingness to hear us and to come to our school on last Thursday night. I too wonder about the sustainability of a program when we're not advertising it, when new students aren't told about it to enroll. We're starving a great program if we are not passing this information out. Just by holding the enrollment open is not going to get any of the parents who are planners to be able to enroll their children. That's the parents who are going to plan will have already enrolled their children elsewhere. And I think that that's something that we need to take immediate action in allowing people to know about this program. And this is something as a group that we've been coming to you every month this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Reggie Harrison.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you. Unfortunately, I was unable to be at the meeting last week, and I appreciate the intent of that meeting. I was in Mexico using my Spanish that was started here in Wilson County, not through this program, obviously, but at Fike High School back in the mid-'80s. I speak fluent Spanish now, and I speak passable Portuguese, but all of my Spanish started at high school level here in Wilson. I know how difficult it is. And I don't know if you guys remember me speaking. I spoke exactly a year ago at your February board meeting and mentioned this before. But to me, the value of this program for any student in Wilson County, which is huge, is so valuable because they learn it at an age where it stays in there. If anybody else had high school Spanish as their start and now says hola and gracias and that's it, that's what you're dealing with. That's the value of this program. So I'm also a businessman in this community, and I see it from a different perspective. I'm a parent, I have a 5th grader, I have a 2nd grader in the program, and I have a kindergartner who I would very much like to enroll in this program. I see how great it is. But the lack of a plan and lack of what we know for going forward is very frustrating for us. Mr. Mercer, I appreciate you saying next year we want to have this figured out one way or the other. That's what needs to happen. So I appreciate you guys kicking the can down a little further, but I really would hope that you would say we're going to do kindergarten again next year. Let's get them signed up. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia Jenkins.
I don't know if this is against the rules or not, but I did prepare a handout because I'm a visual person. If I may, nothing's bad about it. I just want to share it. If you don't,
Your time's ticking. Just hand and we'll pass it
I would
around.
love to. I just want to make sure I follow the rules. My name is Claudia Jenkins, and I'm going to try to talk so everyone can hear me. For the 2nd year in a row, the board has made the case that sustaining and continuing the program is impossible due to the financial constraints caused by the deadline in student enrollment. And new legislation has been passed, that fabulous House Bill 90 and 13. But there are stark discrepancies in the information we were provided on Thursday's meeting at Elm City. The total cost of the program we were given for 2016-2017, according to the report, was $370,272. Projected cost for 17-18 academic year was $475,640. The cost of the program presented on the 15th is $749,331. And after eliminating several immersion teachers and resident teachers positions, consolidating the program to one school, limiting kindergarten to only one class, sharing one TA between 2 first grade classes, combining one third grade, 1 4th grade, the cost of the program was increased $379,059 compared to its actual cost in 2016-17. And by $273,691, I could buy a house with that, compared to the projected cost of the program as indicated in the 2017 report. What's the explanation for the staggering cost when we have a contract with Participate, or VIP as it was? Of great alarm is the fact that the immersion program fee was $92,600 in 2017, yet in the most recent presentation, the fees cost $208,470.30. What's included in the sum of money? Participant teachers are currently employed by the school district. Why is it so much higher? Because these people are already employed. What are the plans for the funds coming from House Bill 90, which does provide $600 million over 4 years? However, the next year it does give one enhancement teacher per 191 students in K-5 for music and arts, physical education, and health programs, and world languages. That's 3 different sections. If you look at the slide 12 of the presentation last Thursday, it shows a total enrollment of 436 students in Elm City Elementary. State provides enough funding from the program enhancements to fund multiple teachers. If you take 436 and divide it by 191, which is on their beautiful handout, it equals 2.2827 positions per music and art. That's 1 PE, and then world languages. If you combine music and art, there's only one surplus of 0.2827 left in that category. Therefore, that allotment for world languages increases by 0.2827, and it guarantees a total of 3.8481 positions. Now, I know positions are fluid. I know you can't have 1/10 of a person here and half a person here and a quarter of a person here. But what you do have is you have enough students to actually fund the program. I showed it to you in that beautiful spreadsheet with color-codedness. I don't know what the funding is for the TAs, but it does show you that with House Bill 90, there is enough money for the program. That's not even touching Title I funds, which you can use because all elementary schools in Wilson County are Title I. Nash County is using the money from Title I to fund their entire Spanish immersion program at 3 different elementary schools. Why can't we do that? Why can't we allow that opportunity for everyone? So basically, we don't need 11 extra positions because we're going to have the money from House Bill 90, plus additional cap for, am I out? Mm-hmm. Call me, email me if you have questions.
Thank you. And Scott Hanchett.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Claudia, you certainly make it difficult to follow you, I must say. I want to say special thanks to Dr. Mills, Mr. Farmer, Dr. Fitch, the new superintendent,
Dr. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson, thank you. Excuse me, I could recall your name. And and Mr. Cyrus over there. Thank you very much for attending the Thursday meeting. We very much appreciate it. I had some candid conversations with several of you there, especially with Dr. Mills. Dr. Mills, you talked about 2 schools specifically that were in danger of being taken over by the state, and you said, just give me time and give me a chance to get our legs underneath them so we can correct these schools. I'm just getting started. I feel the same way about Spanish immersion. We've had the same movement over the last couple of years. All this movement. As you can see, we have the parent involvement. We all want this program to succeed. You talk about the declining enrollment. This is a success. This is what will bring people into your schools. Not going to public schools, not going to Greenfield, not going to the Charter Academy, and not going out. They will stay in Wilson County. You build from these successes. Success is not built with one big gulp. It's small successes over time that you win, not with a big one, with small ones. This is a small success you start with. You start bringing students back in, your enrollment goes up, and then you move on to other programs. Certainly you don't do it exclusion of others. Not everything, but there are other things you can do. This is a good program with a very dedicated and, as you can tell, encouraged parents. Also, I'd like to bring up 5th grade. We were promised enrollment for this would be from kindergarten through 5th grade. We had a conversation earlier. We talked about kindergarten through 4th grade. This needs to continue into 5th grade for Spanish immersion, and also continue further on into middle school and high school. I understand we're not looking for Spanish immersion to be full-time in middle school or high school, just 1 or 2 classes. You could have one teacher for a middle school teach all classes Spanish immersion, 6, 7, 8. One person for one middle school instead of 11. To work your way through, to have one class fully in Spanish immersion. Social studies, histories, whatever subject it might happen to be. Again, thank you very much for your time, for your dedication and your devotion to Wilson County and our children. We very much appreciate it. And also, thank you for the dedication for all the people here for Frederick Douglass Elementary School, which I think everyone in Spanish immersion, we are all in favor of that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members of the board, we have heard the input from the public. As you know, there are 5 responses that we deal with. First, we direct the chairman to respond to the concern on behalf of the board, or we direct the administration to respond to the concern. Third, we refer the matter to a board committee. Fourth, we refer the matter to the administration. Or fifth, we place the matter of concern on the agenda for a future meeting. For those persons who are here for Spanish immersion, you know that there was a discussion of this program at the Instructional Services Committee meeting this afternoon. That information will be presented further down in the agenda, and we will be making recommendations for action. As I said at the committee meeting, I think that there is a misconception that because an item is placed on the agenda and it says action item, it does not mean that the action will be a yes or a no, but that the action can very well be that we direct the administration to take further steps and direct them as to where the board is having questions or having concerns or would like for further discussion to take place. So we're not moving it to another agenda at this point. We're not directing the administration at this point. All of these 5 points that we have as our options, it is on our agenda for tonight, so there will be discussion on and action on the Spanish immersion program. For those who spoke on behalf of the renaming of Frederick Douglass, Elm City Elementary to Frederick Douglass Elementary, we have that on our agenda as well as an action item, and as you are aware, based on previous discussion, this is an action item and it has come before the board for 2 meetings, and we will be taking an action one way or the other on that as well. So you're all welcome to stay and hear the continuation of the reports, and we're going to move on from there. So at this time, the Administrative Services Committee, Mr. Mercer, if you will share your points with us at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Administrative Services Committee met. In attendance was Ms. Boyette and Ms. Flynn, myself, Dr. Mills, Mr. Cyrus, Mr. Eric Davis, Mr. Letchworth, Mr. Glenn Davis, Ms. Evans, Dr. Ed Kroon, and several others. Our agenda included 3 information items, 1 action item. Excuse me. The first information items was regarding contracts requiring board notification. Of those, the first one was regarding the ropes course at Vincent Bynum. In that it's a high ropes course. The benefits, it would help with the general agreements activities and helping. It would also help team building for school staff and other groups. Community use. The almost entirely is paid for through grant funds. Outside company would do the bulk of the work. I think our employees through maintenance may repair the fence that secures it and clean up some underbrush. It also, I think, needs to be reviewed by the attorneys in the agreements and the use and the books or guidelines for using the course. Mr. Farmer, you're very aware, very knowledgeable on this. If you'd like to expand on what I've said, I'd appreciate it.
We're very, very excited. We're very, very safety conscious, and it's sort of unfortunate that just last week, Channel 5 did a story on some unfortunate accidents that happened at a ropes course. And I had the pleasure today to talk to the individuals that are responsible for the 2 ropes courses. And in both cases, it was an error, totally a human error, and it was about certification. And I was able to search out and find out that in 1 million hours of use on ropes courses, you only had 4.3 injuries. Whereas with soccer, in 1 million hours of soccer, you had 4,500 injuries. Now, both of these courses are not like the course that we're building. There are many, many different kinds of challenge courses. There are aerial courses, there are free fly courses, there are alpine tower courses, there are canopy tours, there are zip lines that run thousands of feet. Basically, we're going to build a 6-element course over at Vincent Bynum. It'll be fenced in so no one can get in there unless a facilitator is present. It'll have a 1-to-10 ratio. It will be certified. The facilitators will be certified, and we will make sure it's absolutely safe. And the way the child would get down, or in many cases, as we rent it out to different organizations, will be off of a zip line. Their children, one of them fell 46 feet, one fell 40 feet. Here again, it was not equipment failure or anything like that. It was people that weren't certified on the course, and it was human error. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to enhance the low ropes course we've been using at the School for the Deaf, which is one of the largest low ropes courses in the state. I personally have been involved in it for over 25 years, and to my knowledge, we've not had 1 injury, period. So very excited about this, very excited to go forward. It's not going to cost Wilson County hardly anything. We got a grant, $80,000. And so here again, it's going to enhance what we're doing here, especially with those at-risk students that that go through our courses and learn self-esteem and leadership.
Thank you. Dr. Mills, anything you wish to add today? No, sir. Ms. Boyer, you're on committee and others. Okay, the second was, is that Prologic? Prologic ITS is a service to help prevent and monitor the computer systems which involve, I don't think we mentioned how many computers across the county, but there's probably hundreds, if not more, more like thousands of computers, and which through any of those someone can gain access and create quite a number of problems. So this is a contract to help us monitor and prevent and clean up any situations that might occur before they reach massive proportions. Ms. Boyer, anyone else? Okay. That concludes the first information item. The second information item is energy management. We're speaking about an energy management system that would be at no risk to Wilson County if they can't save us, if they can't save us as much as we need to pay them. There is no charge. And the last time I can remember, some years back, there were some energy savings that included cutting off lights and restricting people's comfort. And this one, they say, I understand, is not of that type. It's more in efficiency of the equipment we've got, and also monitoring the use of energy-using equipment. In that light, it seems to be a no-lose deal for Wilson County. Ms. Boyer.
Mr. Chair, I would like to comment that I was impressed with the presentation made by Dr. Crum, the retired superintendent from Johnson County, and the statistics that he provided for us from other counties that are using the system, and depending upon the length of time, some impressive results. So I would be very much in favor.
And it is a 5-year program, from what I understand. They've been quite successful with it. Anyone else have any questions or comments regarding that? Okay, the third information item is the modular unit proposed site for the Wilson Area Student Health Center. We have at Bedingfield, we have one at Forest Hills, and it's called the WASH program there. Wilson Area Student Health is what that acronym represents. This is not per se approving the whole project, because I still think the attorneys have to review that. But the site is outside the entrance to Bedingfield. The entrance where you go into the cafeteria or commons area to the right of that is where they would, that would be built. Dr. Mills.
I'm pleased with the presentation, and I know this is a good opportunity for us to work with the Healthcare Foundation and this grant proposal, and everything looked in order for what we've requested. So it looks like a great opportunity for the school system.
I agree.
Madam Chair. The only question we had was for the attorney, did this need to be an action item for the site plan?
No, it does not.
Okay. Then we're
Okay, good.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? That concludes the information items. Now, we have one action item, which is the 2017-18 budget amendments. In your package, you will see there are four. Budget Amendment 104, which is State Public Schools Fund, represents changes made due to allotment revision forms received from the Department of Public Instruction. Any comments or questions? Okay, amendment number 201, which is the current expense fund, reflects the budgeting of excess fines and forfeitures and interest received. Any comments or questions? Amendment 304 represents the budgeting of various federal programs. Questions or comments? And Amendment 804, Local Special Revenue Fund, reflects the budgeting of rental fees and interest in the alignment of the Watt grant. Any questions or comments? Madam Chair,
Mr. Mercer?
on behalf of the Administrative Services Committee, I move that we approve Budget Amendment 104, 201, 304, and 804 as recommended by administration.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that we approve the 2017-18 budget amendments 104, 201, 304, and 804. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Members of the board, I do need to step back for 1 second because in the individuals that addressed the board, we did have Mr. Connolly, who was not speaking on Spanish immersion or the Frederick Douglass High School alumni request. I would like to, that was the issue of class size, and I would like, right, at Elm City Middle, and I would like to have the administration take a look at that and deal with that so that we can respond. Several of those who signed up to address the board did not give us an address to be able to respond back to you. So if before you leave, and if you spoke, if you would like to give us your address, we would be happy to have that so we can get back to you. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the Instructional Services Committee report. That committee met this afternoon. We had several action items, and if you would take a look at those, we had a revision of the 2017-18 traditional and early college calendars, proposed 2018-19 traditional and early college calendars, proficiency summer school, and Spanish immersion. So since each of these items will take action, because as chair of that committee, I will be making the motions. Mr. Mercer, as vice chair, I turn this portion of the meeting over to you so that you can preside and handle the motions when they are made.
Yes, ma'am.
You have the revised calendar for 2017-18 for both the traditional calendar and for the early college. As we have experienced inclement weather, and there were days that school were closed in January, it has become necessary that we make some adjustments to the calendar so that on the traditional calendar, they had been removed on the 17th and 18th. And so now we are revising that calendar to show June 18th and 19th to be added as work days. On January 22nd, it was changed from a work day to an instructional day. And this is and the early colleges had slight revisions to their calendars as well based upon the same information. Are there any questions in regard to the changes or the revisions made to the 17-18 calendar? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
move that we approve the revised 2017-18 traditional and early college calendars as presented by the administration.
A second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the revision or the revised 2017-18 traditional and early college calendars as recommended by administration. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. It carries unanimously.
Members of the board, we were given the proposed 2018-19 calendars, both traditional and early college. You have them before you. We had two options for the traditional calendar, which and option one and option two. In option two, we are looking to move and to make a change from what we traditionally have right now with exams being held after the Christmas break. So this has a big impact on our high school staff and students, not as much so with our elementary and middle. In option two, the change is that there would be 80 student days in the first semester and 93 student days in the second semester. There was a difference only in 4 hours in the total. In option one, there were a total of 1,042 hours with 530 hours for semester one, 512 hours in semester two. In option two, there would be 480 hours of instruction in the first semester and 558 hours in the second semester. The primary change that this would allow would be for students to have their final exams before they go home for Christmas. Before the state mandated our start and end calendars, we were in a block schedule where we did have end of course tests at the high school before the Christmas break. We found that usually the students did better with testing before they had the break for Christmas rather than going home for the Christmas break, coming back, having to do a lot of review and reteaching for the students to take their end of course testing. And so it is the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee that we select option two for utilization. Therefore, I move that we adopt option two, traditional calendar for the 2018-2019 school year.
I'll second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve option two of the proposed 2018-19 traditional and early college calendars. Do we hear any further?
No, that
As
motion was
recommended by administration.
That motion was just for the traditional, not the early college at
Excuse
this
me.
point.
I'll restate it. It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve option 2 of the proposed 2018-19 traditional calendar as recommended by administration.
Mr. I wanted to commend the administration, Dr. Wilson, and those that went to the efforts to do this. And it was significant to me that she shared that when all of the principals were asked their opinion on this, that not just the high school principals were in favor of it, but the middle and the elementary principals. So it was unanimous, the support for option 2. I had also heard some support from the community, or some teachers that were speaking also very much in favor of going with the option 2. So I'd like to express my support for that as well.
It might also be worthy of mentioning that while we have more days in the second semester, that's normally where we have most of our days
Weather.
to be made up due to inclement weather. Any further conversation or questions, comments? Okay. Everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries unanimously.
The third item was a proficiency summer school. What has been proposed is an opportunity.
Excuse me, Dr. Fix, is there going to be a motion on the early college
Oh,
calendar?
thank you. Mr. Vice Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
The early college calendar is in keeping with the schedule of the community college and meeting our instructional needs as well. And it is the recommendation of the Instructional Services Committee that the proposed 2018-19 early college calendar be approved. Therefore, I move that this calendar be approved as well.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the proposed 2018-19 early college calendar as presented. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries unanimously.
Thank you. Now to the proficiency summer school. We find that there are instances where students do not do well on the end of course testing, end of grade testing, and in order to help to remedy or hope to remedy that situation, there is a proposed plan for implementing a proficiency summer school opportunity. This would be a voluntary situation. Students would not be required to attend. This would allow for improvement in proficiency. It would not contribute to the system's growth when we're evaluated. The summer school would be across the board. It is not supplanting or in place of the Read to Achieve summer school program. That effort will still go. But this is for grades 4 through 8, and also at the high school level for Math 1, the EOC for Math 1, the EOC for Biology, as well as the EOC for English 2. So this would be in effect for students in grades 4 through 12. It would run from 8 to 2 for the elementary grade students, from 8:30 to 2:30 for the middle school students, and 7:30 to 1:30. And this would be held June 7th and 8th. Within our schools. It is the recommendation from the Instructional Services Committee that we approve this offering, the Proficiency Summer School. Notifications would be sent to parents and the like. And that is therefore that I move that we approve the Proficiency Summer School plan that has been presented.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the Proficiency Summer School program as presented. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing, yes, ma'am.
I wanted to jump up and shout when I read this. This is so good to see that our students are going to be able to do the retesting. It won't count in our growth, as you pointed out, but in the accountability. Prior to 2010, they could take the retest. You know, we gave the test, and then in a few days we gave the retest, and that gave a second opportunity, and that was so good. So I was unhappy when they did away with it in 2010. But when I saw this today, I was like, hallelujah, we have come to our senses again.
And as I said earlier in committee meeting, I wanted to thank Dr. Wilson, Mr. Linden, because they put a lot of work into implementing this or into the plan for our approval. A job well done.
It will count towards proficiency.
It will.
It will, proficiency,
But not toward growth.
And math does include grade 3.
Oh, math includes grade 3.
Right. Just grade is 4 through 8.
Right. Okay, thank you. So the correction is that it will affect third graders for math, but the others are 4 through 8.
Reading is
in
4
high
through
school.
8.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Any further discussion or question? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimously.
Mr. Vice Chair, the next item that we had on the agenda was the issue of Spanish immersion. And at the time of the meeting this afternoon, a presentation was made that talked about the successes of the program, the challenges of the program. We talked about the funding of positions and the like. We talked about the number of students who were served in Spanish immersion in comparison to the total population at Elm City Elementary School. We had several questions to be raised in regard to funding being an issue, core instructional concerns with licensed teachers, the requirements of House Bill 13, the requirements of House Bill 90. Whether or not there would be a continuation of the program in some format at the middle school, whether or not the program be continued and if it would remain at Elm City Elementary School. We then were given information on the feedback that was provided by parents who had attended the session on Thursday. We looked at the level of support. We looked at where the students and districts were that made up those students coming into Spanish immersion. We were informed that there are 6 schools in Nash County, 1 school in Johnston County, who are currently using Spanish immersion programs. And we had various charts that showed the responses to the survey that the parents completed.
It was the 6 and 1 was the students from out of county.
Oh, I'm sorry, correction. 6 was students who came to our system for Spanish immersion from Nash County, and 1 student who is in the program from Johnson County. We did talk about the priorities, the top priority as well as the lowest priority based upon the results of the survey that the parents completed. The lowest priority was transportation and enhancement class, and the top priorities were eligibility and program structure. After being given the presentation, we had discussion, and there were several points that were brought in terms of questions as to how we next proceed. And the questions for the next steps hinged on method of responding to the survey feedback and the data, whether or not we will extend the kindergarten registration, because the parents had indicated, as we are well aware, that kindergarten registration is quickly approaching. It is noted that students come into the system beyond that prescribed kindergarten registration time, and they are registered. So depending on when individuals come into the system, there is an opportunity for students to register. We have considered extending the kindergarten registration time. In addition to information in order to move forward, we are recommending to the administration that they research other district programming, that they provide a cost analysis of current program for the next 4 years, that there is a cost analysis and sustainability consideration of moving the program into the middle school, how to involve parents in fundraising and grants, and we do know that the parent support is definitely there. We are asking them to consider the options for restructuring the program, the efforts to promote enrollment so that the numbers can grow if the program is to continue, commitment from DPI and resources from DPI for the program. We're looking at having them provide how many students we need to maintain the program, to go back and look at data from the past years to see the number of students who are actually performing on grade level in both reading and math. Last year we were informed that there were issues, particularly where the students have been instructed in Spanish and limited English, and then at the end of the year these students are still expected to perform on the EOG reading assessments in 3rd grade, which is why there is a literacy component now, to look at how we will advertise and how parents can be involved in the advertisements going forward. So it is the recommendation for these and other measures, and if there are other points that members of the board would like to add to this list, we will gladly hear those as we move this forward. And so I'll give board members, Mr. Mercer, an opportunity to see if there are any other recommendations that we are going to ask the administration to deal with.
So are there any from the board members? Do you have any recommendations to add to the list that has been shared with us by Dr. Fitch?
Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman, we
Yes,
all
sir.
had a great opportunity at length to speak, each one of us, at the committee
Yes.
meeting, and
And I
Dr.
think-
Fitch has brought out most of,
I think
what we...
she's capsuled it quite well.
Truly.
Well, hearing that, Mr. Vice Chair, I move that we present these directives to the administration to bring back to the board with further information as we look at the continuation or not of Spanish immersion. I think we are in need of more information before we are able to make a final decision. And some of these points are tantamount to our being able to make a rational and informed decision. So I move, okay.
I don't know that I can repeat all of that. But
Just
I think
do it the best you can.
But if I understand it correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's been moved and properly seconded, that we direct administration to seek information as listed in your presentation.
That's good.
Does that cover it? Any further discussion or
I just have
question?
a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that they're going to do a lot of research, and will we be given information by next board meeting
Yes, you can.
as best you can?
Sure.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries unanimously. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Farmer?
Yes, Madam Chair. The Human Resources Services Committee was scheduled to meet at 6 o'clock. However, I yielded our time to you because you had quite a full plate with the revisions and proposed calendars and the proficiency of summer school there and the Spanish immersion program. We did meet at 6:30 and I had all 7 board members there and met with Mr. Davis, Dr. Wilson, and Dr. Mills, and I think there were others there. And we've got 3 items here, and none of them are action items or informational items. And I think Mr. Davis will be bringing us up to date on all 3, but I'm going to take his thunder on the first one, the gentleman's agreement, since I'm heavily involved in that. He did list about 6 upcoming dates, and it was basically an update he was giving us, this tremendous program as we develop our at-risk youth. And the one thing that stands out to me is that the nation is going to find out about this program and how great it is and how proud we are, because he's going to present it at San Antonio to the National School Boards Association, and that'll be in front of probably 5,000 people, and they have option to come and hear this. So very pleased with that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, locally here, they've come up with another great field trip that they're going to take, and it's carrots that's been hung out for the kids to do well, and they have done well, and it's to Atlanta, Georgia. So I applaud you, and I also applaud Mr. Barnes. I'm never going to let you out of that. You guys are joined at the hip, and I thank you. And then, of course, at the end of the year, we'll get the parents and we'll get the students together, and we'll have a great awards program like we always do at the Surge Center. Help us out, Mr. Davis. Talk a little bit about House Bill 90, the class size update, and Policy 7410, teacher contracts.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farmer. I'll jump right into the teacher contracts, if I could. We are bringing to you the first read.
House Bill 90 is first.
Oh, okay. If we could bring your attention to this one-sheeter that I've given to the board at committee meeting, just to give you an overview of the implications of House Bill 90. And as I shared, there's some implications that span over a 4-year period. When you look at the classroom teachers and the different averages and the individual maximums that they're putting in place over a 4-year period, the implications for 18-19 are additional 6 teachers, classroom teachers, 19-20, 8, 20-21, 8, and then 21-22, additional 13 teachers. Now when you go over to the program enhancement teachers, that ratio of 1 to 191, and what they have you do is they have you look at the total number of students, K-5, total number is 5,331. And so when you look at that 191 with a 1 to 191 ratio, that takes you somewhere around 27.9 teachers. So that's 28 teachers that would fund in its totality. But if you have to remember, that's over a 4-year period. And so first year, they'll only fund 7 teachers. Second year, 14. Next year, 21. The next year, 28. Currently, right now, we have 30 program enhancement teachers on our rosters right now. And so I've projected some of the costs for you as well. Any questions about House Bill 90 implications? Okay. All right. Moving on to the teacher contracts. We'll bring in this contract to you for first read. If you look at the one-sheeter that we provided for you, what we've done is, as a result of our last meeting where we shared the different options with you, we went and received feedback from our principals, our 16-17 teachers of the year, our 17-18 teachers of the year, and then overwhelmingly meeting with different superintendents and my personnel colleagues around the state, We've looked at recommending option 2. So when you read the policy, that's where we are. And you can see some of the feedback that we've collected as well. Any questions about that?
Madam Chair, concludes my report.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I might.
We have 7410, is that, yes?
And 7410 is before you for first reading. We'll have some tweaks on that, some legal tweaks on that.
Okay.
Before it comes up for second reading. And the School Board Association has recommended some additional tweaks from the version that you have just in the past week or so,
Okay.
week or two. I do want to point out that there's a problem that we hope will be in a technical correction when the General Assembly comes back in May, in that the statute says you can't offer a multi-year contract to a contract teacher unless they've been employed or until they've been employed in your school system for at least 3 consecutive years. Okay? The problem with that, one of the problems with that is that the statutes now dealing with teacher contracts define a year as July 1 to June 30th. And if you're a teacher who didn't get employed until July 2, and you served 3 consecutive school years, you didn't actually have 3 full years as a year is defined in the statute. So question arises, if you're employed on or before July 1, you're in for 3 consecutive years. If you got your contract July 2 and didn't start teaching until August, you still had 3 full school years in, but not 3 years under the statute. And is there a cutoff point with, excuse me, if you got hired the second day of school or something like that? Under the old statute dealing with probationary teachers, if you had 120 work days performed, which counted as a student day, it counted as a good year. But I think it was poor draftsmanship in setting this up and defining a year that way, and then saying if you're employed 3 years, 3 consecutive years, you're eligible for a multi-year contract.
Okay.
I don't think that was the intent, but that's what the statute says right now.
Okay. Well, we look forward to those tweaks, and will that, with the tweaks, that will still count as the second read? Or will that count?
No, it'll be presented to you prior to second reading, so you can decide on that.
Okay,
Vote on it for second reading.
okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Item 9, discussion item, renaming of Elm City Elementary School. Members of the board, you have heard the request made from the Alumni Association of Frederick Douglass High School to rename, as they championed the renaming of Elm City Elementary to Frederick Douglass Elementary. And as Mr. Meyer spoke and talked about this being the 200th year of his birth, and who do we have to thank for this article? Is this the article you sent?
Sure. Yes.
You had an article placed at your seat that the board attorney, Mr. Schwartz, provided us that talks about Frederick Douglass, a champion of American individualism, that was written by George Will as an opinion piece on January 31st of this year. If you've not had a chance to read it, it is very interesting reading. It is very timely in that this Alumni Association is championing the cause of the renaming of the school. We have had discussion as required in our policy that calls for the renaming of a school, and we have had a consensus almost of the board members. The policy does require a unanimous vote, And it is the time now where the floor is open for a motion, if you are so inclined to do, in regard to the renaming of Elm City Elementary.
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Powell.
I move that we rename Elm City Elementary School to Frederick Douglass Elementary School.
I will second.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Moved by what we found out at the last meeting is a descendant of Frederick Douglass. And seconded by hair, whatever. She claims it.
So you can tell by the hair, same
Oh.
difference.
That we rename Elm City Elementary to become Frederick Douglass Elementary. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. We have We thank you. And Mr. Farmer.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I move Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential personnel matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143.
Can I please, sorry,
318.11A1 and 6, and 115C-319 through 321, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3.
is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consider confidential matters as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6 and 115C 319 through 321, and to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned to closed session.